Welcome to Trinidad and Tobago Opposition's media briefing this Sunday, the 22nd of September, 2024, discussing labor, property tax, and local government issues. Today, our presenters are MP Rudranath Indarsingh, the Shadow for Labor, and MP Khadijah Ameen, Shadow for Local Government. Thank you for joining our broadcast. We will begin shortly. In the meanwhile, please subscribe and share the live.
Things does come before blessings, but we have to be patient, yeah. Weeping and mourning in the night, but joy in the morning. But we just have to endure. You see, God, the way no night come, so you don't really need to lie down. Them say what goes around comes right back around. I go wait until my time come. So from sun up straight to sunset, you could catch I bust in a sweat. I must time out. I feel like hope. But he give us the strength and the will and the power and the courage to handle our problems through him. So on the count of four, I want everybody step on their problems. 1, 2, 3, 4. Trample them, trample them, trample them, trample them, manhandle them, manhandle them, dismantle them, dismantle them, trample them, trample them, trample them, kick out your problems, kick out your problems. So as they sink you under, you float, ride on the storm, them just like a boat. So as they push you down so you get up, they have to wonder how you just get up. And every crack you see, you just see through. And by the help of God, you will get through. Now everybody stop. I feel like hope.
Do you know that in 2016, 66 liters of diesel cost $100? Today, under the PNM, you get 20 liters of diesel for $100.
The diesel you paid $100 for under the UNC now costs $327 under the PNM,
which directly affects the cost of food, transport, and services. Guess who I'm voting for next time?
A pleasant good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. As I take the opportunity on behalf of the Leader of the Opposition and Political Leader of the United National Congress and our party to welcome you to another of our Sunday morning's press briefing out of our party headquarters in Endeavour in Chaguanas, where this morning we will be addressing a number of issues impacting upon the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, which is being carried out by this anti-people and anti-democratic government of the PNM led by Dr. Keith Rowley. This morning, we will be discussing local government issues, the property tax, the Trinidad and Tobago Revenue Authority, and the opposition's request through the leader of the opposition, whom has formally written to the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. Keith Rowley, requesting for election observers to be brought into our country to witness and oversee the impending or imminent general election, which is scheduled to take place in Trinidad and Tobago. In this regard, firstly, on the issue of local government, I want to invite to the podium someone who has been in the trenches on behalf of our great party, someone who has a rich track record of understanding the local government issues and what is taking place at the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development. A local government practitioner, I think, for more than 20 years of her life. She has served as a councillor in the Tunapuna Piako Regional Corporation, a chairman of that corporation, the Northeast Regional Representative on the National Executive of the United National Congress, and the shadow with responsibility for local government and rural development. I have great pleasure in asking and welcoming to the podium this morning our colleague, the Member of Parliament for St. Augustine, Ms. Khadijah Ameen, to address us.
Good morning to Trinidad and Tobago, our friends and colleagues who are listening. On this weekend before Republic Day, I want to take the opportunity to wish Trinidad and Tobago a happy Republic Day. It is a time when our nation has much to mourn. It is a time where we as citizens are preparing for another budget from this government after 9 years of repeated abuse and neglect and hardship. This morning, I want to share with you another of what I see as an abuse that is being perpetrated, and it involves our regional corporations. Local government representatives are the closest arm of government to people. They are the ones on the ground, and they are the ones who feel the cry of the people. Very recently, our regional corporations lost significant sums of money. And we saw that the Minister of Local Government, Rural Development and Local Government indicated on the 2nd of September via a memo from the Ministry of Finance that over $42 million, I have the memo here, $43.6 million is being taken away from the regional corporations. And it is being given to CPEP and to the RDC, National Reforestation and Watershed Rehabilitation Program. These two bodies fall under local government, and so the money is remaining within the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government, but it is being taken away from the regional corporations. And I bring this to your attention because numerous occasions, the minister himself would have said that regional corporations will get more money. I want you to look on your screen. I want you to look at the vast amounts being removed from the corporations. And if you look, you will see where it is going. And you have $36.62 million going to CPEP on the 2nd of September to be spent before the end of the financial year on the 30th of September. You also have the transfer to State Enterprise RDC of $7 million. And this money is coming from the regional corporation, because if you look on the other side of your screen, you will see where they are removing monies from general administration, but from the under development programs. The development program is the funding that regional corporations use to build any sort of projects. So they want to build a box drain to prevent flooding, they do it under the development program. The DP programs include drainage, bridges, paving of roads, cemeteries, recreation grounds, parks, and any infrastructural work that they wish to do. They are also removing, as you can see lower down, the monies for municipal police equipment and implementation of the municipal police fleet and manpower management system. This in a time when we are faced with so many national security issues and issues of crime in the community that our municipal police need strengthening for. If we go lower down, you will see from every regional corporation, money is being taken. Port of Spain Corporation, Arima Borough, Shogunas Borough, San Juan Lavantil, Sandy Grande Region, Cuva Tabakit, Mayaro Corporation, Pinal Debe Corporation. And the total is $43 million being removed. And what are these corporations supposed to do with this money? These monies include funding for municipal police stations, for vehicles for municipal police, for computerization, for local government reform, and I'll come to that because the government has been promising local government reform and it seems to be just another mama guy. Regional corporations are losing monies for disaster preparedness. They are losing monies for vehicles and equipment at a time when so many times when you request equipment to clear water courses, they have no equipment, they have no vehicles, and sometimes they don't even have fuel to put in these vehicles. And so we are seeing throughout where every regional corporation is suffering from because they are going to lose monies under these heads. What we do have as well is that in addition to the monies being transferred here, the minister is also taking back the majority of the money allocated to the regional corporations for their development program. And they are using the procurement legislation as an excuse, and I will elaborate. Under normal circumstances, regional corporations will be given an allocation in the budget. We look forward to see what they give in this year's budget. But when they get that allocation, the corporation, the council will sit and decide what they would like to spend the money on, and then they send a request for funds to the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government. They receive in turn a confirmation of funds, and it is only when the ministry confirms that funding is available that they can proceed to award contracts, because you must have confirmation of these funds to enter into any contract, because you have to pay these people. Subsequent to the confirmation of funds, at some point in time, you will have the release of funds. So the Ministry of Finance will then release the money to Ministry of Local Government, and then it will go to the regional corporation. Every year, the government says they are going to increase funding. On your screen, there's a Guardian headline, more millions for local government. Funding jumps 200%. We were all excited. And then we realized it was lies and mama guy. The Minister of Local Government completely misleading the population, completely lying to the regional corporations to say that their funding will increase by 200%. Here is what they did. They increased the allocation, but then they did not give the releases. So they put on the budget that you will get 10 million, for example, and then you only actually get $2 million when you send your request for funds. How many regional corporations have requests for funds pending? And we are close to the end of the financial year, and the minister is yet to release the funding. This promise for increased funding is another lie and mama guy from the Minister of Local Government. The money is not being released. What we have now, close to the end of this financial year, we have where regional corporations would have entered into contracts to do improvement work within their region, and now they are not being given the releases, and they are told that only contractors who complete the work by the end of the financial year, before the end of the financial year, September 30th, 2024, now, that those contractors will be paid by the Ministry of Local Government, not by the regional corporation. This after they have entered into a contract with the regional corporation. And Faris Alwari, as a former Attorney General, in my view, is misleading the corporations. And I warn you, every corporation is its own legal entity. When they enter into a contract, they do so on that authority. And your refusal to release the money to the regional corporation is now being an excuse, I should say, an excuse to stifle the regional corporations. Because procurement legislation was introduced in this financial year, many regional corporations spent the first half of the financial year getting it right. Many of them did not have procurement officers. Many of them still do not have procurement units. You have members of staff doubling and trying to figure out with very little training about the new procurement legislation. So they did lose some time in administratively making sure they were on the right track. Now they are being told that it is only contracts that are completed before the end of the financial year that they will be paid. And I am calling on Minister of Rural Development and Local Government, Faris Alwari, and the Minister of Finance to release the monies to the regional corporations now, so that they can continue with their work. Because if the contractors are not paid in this financial year, it will then go over to the next financial year. So they will lose the money from this year, and the next financial year they have to pay their old bills from this financial year, and they will not be able to do much the new development work. Why are you putting the regional corporations in that bind? Why are you misleading the population that you are increasing funding when you are in fact taking it away through the back door? And every regional corporation is facing this. But you know what is happening? CPEP and RDC operates under a government directive. The millions that they take away from the regional corporations, we want to know where it is being spent. And we will look into filing a Freedom of Information to find out what you, Minister Faris Alwari, plan to spend $43 million on before the end of the financial year. So in a matter of days, you are going to spend $43 million. Doing what? So this, my friends, is another broken promises. Another one of the long list of broken promises. And the failures in local government is affecting people's everyday lives. The minister, when he indicated there would be a 200 increase in funding, largely relied on figures, projected figures for property tax. Property tax that the government cannot get right to this date. The opposition is very firm. Now is not the time to implement property tax. We are very firm that the government is rushing to implement property tax amendments, and they should really be prioritizing developing equitable and sustainable solutions that will address the root cause of taxation inefficiencies and inequalities. Deal with that first, rather than bringing new taxes and onerous taxes on people. And you have long lines in the hot sun and still so much uncertainty. This might resolve some of what we are seeing happening at this time, but we do need improved valuation methodologies, enhanced taxpayer education, and greater accountability in terms of the administration of the tax. Where is the money going? So the first issue is the valuation methods. How are you valuing people's property? When I have somebody on the train line receiving a letter to pay the same amount as somebody in Lange Park, you tell me how the maths in. It is not adding up. It is not fair. It is not equitable. When we have so many questions in the public domain, it is very clear that citizens who are being targeted as taxpayers do not have enough information on the property tax. And part of the reason for that is the government's uncertainty, because they have been back and forth doing this one day and then doing that one day. We in the opposition will continue to fight for the rights of the people, because in the meanwhile, we do not have proper accountability for the tax that they are currently collecting, much less for the new taxes that they are proposing to collect. So we are calling on the government to stop this uncertainty and with the property tax and stop mamagaing the regional corporations. Regional corporations would have gotten on paper, once again on paper, in their documents from the Ministry of Finance, a vote indicating in some cases as much as $10 million, which represents what the government projected that each regional corporation will collect from property tax. Well, the first lie and mamagai there was that the regional corporations will actually collect the property tax. Where are you going to line up to pay property tax? To the District Revenue Office of the Ministry of Finance, not the regional corporation, not the Ministry of Local Government. So that is a number one lie that the government continues to repeat. The property tax, it's indicated there that each corporation will collect a certain amount. Even if the government decides it will collect it and give it to the regional corporation, I want you to tell us which regional corporation you have given that money to. So when you had that big amount, millions being placed on the books, on the record, showing that the regional corporation will receive millions for property tax, that added to what the minister promised to be an increase in funding. So it is only on paper. And you are seeing where they are fluffing it up to make it look as though the regional corporations are getting money from property tax and for all the other development programs that the ministry is actually taking back the money from now. What we have seen as well, my friends, because of the failure of this government, there's something significant that is happening in our communities. We are facing a situation where people who are employed and who are government workers have not gotten increased wages. The increase in cost of living is tremendous. We have increase in fuel prices, food prices, you name it, and no increase in salaries. It means that our local economy is being affected, and I'll tell you how. Regional corporations are responsible for maintenance of roadways, parks, local tourist sites, and of course, public health issues. Because the government has been stifling the regional corporation of funding, you now have many areas where local economic development is being affected. So who is losing? It is the small man. We are now hearing talks of government planning to tax small businesses who are barely making money, and I'll come back to that. But at present, many small businesses are closing down, they are shutting down, because they are facing several issues. In addition to the increased cost of doing business, you have a situation where crime is affecting businesses. Every business now has to spend more money to secure themselves on cameras, on security, on fencing and securing their premises because of the prevalence of robberies. You have businesses, including small businesses, facing extortion, where criminals are coming to take money and the police can't find these criminals. You have people whose homes are being shut up if they don't pay this extortion. And many of them have opted to shut down their business and in some cases migrate. But when these businesses shut down, it is those in the communities who are employed in these small and medium-sized business who end up jobless, thanks to the PNM government. In addition to facing extortion, they also face robberies. In many areas, businesses now close up earlier. It is a risk for business owners as well as their workers, but also their customers to stay out late because of the crime situation. Even on your way going back home, once again, local government comes into play. You have vacant lots that are overgrown. and you have bandits hiding out. You have robberies and rapes are happening in those areas. You have the public health issues where garbage is not being collected and how that affects businesses. You have the issue of bad roads and how that affects local tourism and local economic development. And I'll tell you, if you are to take your family for a drive to go to the Mount Volcano, which is in Princeton region, or you want to go to Mayaro on the beach, you have to traverse some really terrible routes. And that in itself is a deterrent. Even when you get there, because of poor funding, the regional corporations have challenges maintaining these local tourist sites. So to provide public health facilities such as toilets, washrooms, running water, to clean and clear the areas, those things are challenges. So now that is a discouragement. And who suffers? It is not only the family who cannot go out and have a wholesome evening out together, but the local economic, our local vendors, our people who sell snow cone, who make craft, people who sell food, who perform cultural events. All of these persons in our small and micro economy are now out of a bread. So when the road to the mud volcano collapses, every person from that community who would usually sell things along the roadside now have no income. And this can be repeated for almost every local tourist site in Trinidad and Tobago. So the fact that the government is not fixing the roads, the fact that the public health and their garbage collection is poor, is also affecting our local economy. And within these regions, there are so many beautiful local tourist sites. Our chairman of Mayaro region likes to say that Mayaro should be the Miami of Trinidad. You should be so happy to take your family and drive on a good road, go up on the way, and along the road you have watermelon vendors who are planting in their gardens right there, so agriculture is affected. You have fishermen selling on the roadside. You have the other economy such as roast fish, which is in terms of in Mayaro, it is something you look forward to. All of our roast fish vendors are now in addition suffering. So this is an example of how the poor performance at local government is also affecting the economy. The fact is also that many families have less disposable income. So given the current situation, some people could barely pay their mortgage or pay their rent because you have no increase in salaries, because you have such a tremendous increase in cost of living. There is less disposable income, so people really have less to spend. So even if they do decide to take a drive on a Sunday and go to one of these tourist sites, along the way to stop and buy from vendors also now becomes a challenge because they have to watch their spending. So this clearly is a government that is focused on the big picture. They are focused on their friends and financiers. And we are faced now with a situation with a government that is not about the small man. But I want to give you the assurance that we in the United National Congress, we do have an economic recovery plan for Trinidad and Tobago that is driven by our local economy and includes revenue generation. And I want to ask all of our Trinidad and Tobago, let us get serious. I want to take this opportunity to commend our local government practitioners who have been standing up in the face of failure in every ministry. When WASA does not provide water, the regional corporations step in and use their funding to provide truck-borne water. When the Minister of Works does not fix the major roadways, it is the regional corporations that take their funding, get material, and deprive the local roads of maintenance to fix the major roads that fall under the Minister of Local Government, Ruhan Sinanan. When the major water courses are causing flooding It is our regional corporations who take their resources to reduce flooding, because flooding is so prevalent throughout. And just recently in St. Augustine there, we had some rainfall. And all along the Eastern Main Road, which falls under the Minister of Works, all along the Blackman Ravine in Curep, all these major watercourses that fall under the Minister of Works, when these are not maintained and the flooding occurs, it is the regional corporations that now have to face the brunt of it. When our recreation grounds are not lit and you have sporting activities, you have, again, TNTEC, and it falls on the regional corporations. And in every ministry we could name, we could find where the failures. And the school recently reopened, and I will tell you, in our schools, many of the schools are now calling on the regional corporations to assist in maintenance. When they require skilled persons to do plumbing, to assist with electrical, when they require maintenance of the facility, to cut the grass, and to assist with painting and so on, when their sewer system is not working, they are calling on the regional corporation. The regional corporation is not getting additional funding for supplying schools. Many of our schools recently reopened and they had hiccups. And while the Minister of Education is failing our schools with major repairs, even the minor repairs, they are suffering. And what happens is that they have to now rely on the regional corporation. So our regional corporations, yes, they are assisting, but what we have here is a situation where they are taking, and not giving them back. So I am looking forward now to see what new mamagai they are coming with in the upcoming budget. In every regional corporation, in fact, I have a list, time does not permit me to read it out, but we have the amounts by millions, how much money was allocated and how much was released. And you can see that millions of dollars was not released to the regional corporations, and that will now go back to the ministry, and they are now using it for their own purposes. CPEP is still under so many question marks. CPEP has allegations of serious fraud. You have political appointments, PNM appointing political persons in there. We have allegations that the reforestation program is being used to pay election machinery from the PNM. And I call on the government to answer these questions. Of course, we know with the amount of lies and mamagai we have been getting that it is unlikely they will admit it. But we know that these things are in fact happening. But there is hope, Trinidad and Tobago, there is hope. We have information that the EBC has already collected ballots. They are printing ballots, and so an election is very, very soon. The EBC has requested additional funding in this last quarter of the year, September to December, and just to pay additional staffing. They have advertised, it is not, it is public information, the EBC has advertised that they need additional staff, that they need to pay some serious overtime. So it is very clear that the EBC is ready for an election. And the question, Trinidad and Tobago, are you ready for an election? Are you ready to say no to this government? Are you ready to say no to a government who has failed to improve the crime situation and make us safer? Are you ready to say no to a government that has refused to increase the wages of government workers? Are you ready to say no to a government that has increased the fuel prices not once, not twice, or 3 times? Are you ready? And for that, my friends, I say, make your voices heard. We in the opposition will continue to speak out, but it is not our duty alone. In this country, democracy allows every person to have their say. And when we see people coming out and voicing their opinion against this government, they tend to attack you and vilify you. They call you unpatriotic, they call you a UNC. There are many people who are not UNC, but they are not in favor of the PNM. And I say to even the PNM supporters who are unhappy with the PNM, it is time to vote them out. I thank you. At this time, I want to welcome my colleague who shadows labor issues. He was a former minister in the Ministry of Finance, the Member of Parliament for Couva South, Erudi Indarsingh.
Thank you very much, our shadow for local government and rural development, MP Ameen, for putting the issues and addressing the very critical issue of where $44 million have been pulled from the regional corporations and being diverted into CPEP and the National Reforestation Program. And we are calling upon Minister Faris Al-Rawi to tell us whether this $44 million will be used or utilized to oil the PNM's machinery as it relates to the impending general elections. Why would a minister want to deny corporations and councillors and burgesses their development programs? That is the issue to ask. Box drains, short pieces of roadways and so on to be paved. These are critical things on behalf of the ordinary people. And this clearly shows what is the priority of the Prime Minister and the Cabinet and the Ministers of Government in the PNM's administration of Dr. Rowley. And this morning I want to focus on three issues, namely one, the impending budget, the 10th budget of the Minister of Finance, which will be read on Monday the 30th of September. Secondly, the property tax and the TTRA. And thirdly, the leader of the opposition's request for election observers into Trinidad and Tobago whenever the imminent general elections is called. And today, nine budgets have been delivered by the Minister of Finance, Coleman Burt. Over $550 billion, or close to half a trillion dollars have been spent by two successive administrations of Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley. And I ask the citizens of the country, what has the PNM of Dr. Rowley delivered to you? Have your quality of life and standard of living improved into their 10th year? Where is the people-centered development that you grew accustomed to under the leadership of Kamla Prasad Bisasa and the People's Partnership Government? This morning, I put it to you that our beautiful Twin Island Republic has been destroyed by the successive administration, or two administrations of the PNM of Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley. And I will quickly try to encapsulate where we are. And if you look at the Guardian of this morning, the Guardian of this morning says, Lafayette students forgotten, a $17.5 billion school project abandoned for the last 8 years. And then on the Newsday, it says, 2 gunned down in Maloney. Tobago records its 23rd murder, 3 men killed in 1 hour. And this really tells you the state of affairs, because the PNM government has decimated our country. They have destroyed the economy of Trinidad and Tobago. The working class has been decimated. Over 130,000 persons have lost their jobs. The middle class have been destroyed. Small and medium-sized businesses have lost their way. There is no economic growth. There is no diversification and job creation. As I said, the education sector is in shambles. Not only the students at Lafayette, but also at St. George's College, Mount Hope Secondary Schools are some glaring examples in recent times. The health sector is in shambles. 18+ persons have died from dengue. We must never forget the long lines for the COVID vaccine. You cannot get drugs on CDAP, x-rays, simple scans, long lines at our hospitals, frustration. Over 4,500 murders have taken place. Blood is flowing on the streets like water. And we must never forget that during a press conference on the 6th of September by leaders of the various arms of the national security network in this country, or the ministry, indicated that none of the Coast Guard vessels or fleet are functioning. 6 vessels built by the Dayman Shipyard Group out of the Netherlands are not functional. 2 built by the Australian shipbuilding company Austal, they are not functioning. And after 9 years and billions of dollars being spent, why are these boats not functioning and patrolling our borders? You have to ask the question, is the government of Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley facilitating the importation and the influx of drugs, arms, and ammunition in Trinidad and Tobago? We cannot get a reliable pipe-borne water supply. That is non-existent under WASA. When you ask for a truck-borne supply, that is not non-existent. And WASA is in a state of collapse. The infrastructure of this country is in shambles. Just from Chaguanas to Chase Village, to widen one lane of the highway, months of mental agony, traffic jams. Nobody knows when the completion date is in sight. And then Rohan Sinanan gone to Bridal Road Bridge, gone to the Perseverance Bridge to cut a ribbon. And within a day of cutting ribbon on these bridges, they have to close the bridges because of substandard work. That is the legacy of the government. Today, we are in a foreign exchange crunch. And I do not know if we have that, but the latest communique we have had from Scotiabank, they have indicated, I think, that they have cut the point of sale transactions on credit card transactions to now $50 for US Visa debit credit card limit. And they have further indicated that I think that they would reduce your credit card will only be allowed a US entitlement of $1,200 in terms of monthly foreign exchange limit. And these are clear signals that we are in a foreign exchange crisis in Trinidad and Tobago. And in fact, small and medium-sized businessmen will tell you that they are forced to purchase the US dollar at between $8 and $9 TT for $1 US. And this is indeed driving up the inflation, the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. And in addition to the collapse of the financial system as it relates to the foreign exchange crisis, we must also be reminded that this government has saddled the taxpayers with the largest national debt since our independence, $141 billion and counting. And this is in the latest economic bulletin of the central bank, dated July 2024. Time will not permit me to go into the details of this latest economic bulletin, but this is the state of affairs. And in recent times, a report by the Trinidad and Tobago International Financial Center, which was launched in August of 2024, found that between 2017 and 2023, a lower percentage of the population held bank accounts. Of these who did not, 41% said the simple reason that they did not have a bank account was that they did not have enough money to merit one. And ladies and gentlemen, on Monday, the 30th, we will expect the Minister of Finance to come and lie, mama guy, cry, engage in propaganda and deception, because we believe that they will want to present an election in their desperate attempt to buy your votes, to bribe you. You would have heard already $44 million in the Ministry of Local Government being diverted into CPEP and the National Reforestation Program. They believe that if they present a budget that may be termed to be one of goodies, it may save them from the inevitable of the political licks that they will get in the imminent general elections. And we want to tell you here this morning, we want to warn you that in spite of what they will come and they will promise and they will lie and they will mamagai, they will not be able to implement, they will not be able to deliver because of sheer incompetence and a lack of what we would call credible leadership. And this morning I would invite, if we could get it up on the screen, to show you how their lies and mamagais have started. Because I want to warn the population, the minister will come and tell you that everything is well, the economy is performing well. We must never forget his famous line, "I can see clearly now." And in his affidavit on the matter involving the Public Services Association and in relation to the government and the TTRA, the minister virtually cried. And the only thing he did not do is cry and tell you that the government is broke. And you had the Minister of Public Utilities, Marvin Gonzalez. He went down to a commissioning ceremony in Tobago, and he said to the country, told the country, that TNTEC has a debt of approximately $4 billion to NGC, and citizens must help pay that $4 billion. We have it up on the screen now. $4 billion debt of TNTEC to the NGC, and saying that the citizens must help to pay. I know it is the government that has the responsibility of dealing with the debt situation. And the minister was really telling the country that they will implement if the recommendations of the Regulated Industries Commission to increase your electricity rates to between 15 and 64%. But I do not know if he got a buff from the Prime Minister or their handlers. And he recanted, he doubled down, and this is why I am saying that their lies, their cry, and their mamagai have begun already. Gonzalez on the Newsday headline, it is on the screen now if you are following. Gonzalez raising electricity rates, not a priority at this time. So we want to signal to you that they will come, they will lie, they will cry, they will mamagai, and they are mamagaing you. On one hand, they are telling you you have to help pay that $4 billion debt. Then some, probably the Prime Minister or their public relation handlers as the general elections is in the air, it is imminent, it is getting closer, have told him to withdraw and retract. And that is why we are warning you. If you take God out of your thoughts and put the PNM back into political office after the general elections, whenever it is called, the government will unleash a deadly dose or cocktail of anti-people measures and taxes upon you that has never been witnessed in this country. It will be worse than what is recommended by the International Monetary Fund. And the signals are very clear. Electricity, water, we are being told to deal with the financial shortcomings of the national insurance system. They will implement increases in contribution rates for workers and employers to the National Insurance Fund. And that is why we are saying that the forthcoming budget will be one of no hope, one where there will be no delivery, one where your standard of living and quality of life will not be improved. And it will be what we have been accustomed to over the last 9 years: sheer incompetence, pressure for the people, warn the people, and we will certainly, under the leadership of the leader of the opposition, Kamla Prasad Bisasa, and my colleagues with the respective shadow ministries, will dissect this budget in the upcoming debate when it begins, my brothers and sisters. Trinidad and Tobago, I now want to turn my attention to this issue of the Trinidad and Tobago Revenue Authority and the property tax and so on. And I will now invite another headline which was gleefully announced by the Minister of Finance when the Privy Council ruled about the constitutionality of the TTRA, a matter that the PSA took all the way within the judicial process of the country. And Trinidad and Tobago, why would a minister declare the headline in the Newsday, Privy Council clears way for Revenue Authority, and the headline, Imbert, we won. And I think the Express had another headline, we won the case. It virtually tells you the thinking of the ministers in this cabinet under Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley, virtually telling you that it is governance is merely about themselves and the cabinet and not thinking through their programs and policies in terms of how it impacts upon the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And certainly when he declares that we won the case gleefully in virtually a joy of ecstasy and so on, when he went or took the X, it clearly demonstrates again the disconnect, the anti-people's feeling, the undemocratic and anti-worker and anti-union mantra of this government under Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley. And this morning, I want to warn Trinidad and Tobago that the coming of the TTRA is not only about the imposition of the property tax. Virtually what they will do, and I am warning the small, the ordinary businessmen, the working class, those who have been retrenched, the 130,000 persons who have lost their jobs, who have set up small businesses, roadside businesses, and so on. Be wary. Imbert and the TTRA is coming to tax the doublesman, the coconut vendor, the nutsman, the bacon shack, the gentleman selling water on our nation highways and byways, single mothers and so on, no one will be spared. I want to reiterate to the poor, the vulnerable, those who cannot make ends meet, the 44% who do not have a bank account in this country simply because they do not have the means to establish a bank account. Be warned that Imbert and Rowley and the entire cabinet, they are on the march. They will stop at no cost in terms of the implementation of the property tax and what they have to unleash on the population of Trinidad and Tobago. We have made it very clear from day one that the UNC is opposed to the Trinidad and Tobago Revenue Authority and the property tax. The UNC has been on record as saying that when we are elected as the next government of Trinidad and Tobago, we will repeal and address the issue of the property tax. We will go back to our formula along the lines of the land and building taxes and so on. And we will also re-examine this whole issue of the TTRA, because for us, this property tax and the TTRA, you recently witnessed, this is property tax torture. It is a government of chaos, long lines, mayhem, and so on. Never forget, as citizens, when you had to get your passports, your birth papers, when you had to change your $100 bill, the monetization process, when you had to get your COVID vaccine, long lines in the hot sun, chaos, confusion, and property tax pressure, property tax torture, property tax mayhem as a result of the incompetence of the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister mustn't get away in this, because he heads the government of Trinidad and Tobago. And if he leads from in front, if he had any care about vulnerable taxpayers of this country, he would have been demanding of the Minister of Finance to ensure that all is put in place as it relates to the payment of the property tax. They had this on their legislative agenda since 2009. When they came back into government in 2015, 9 years and counting, they cannot get this right on behalf of the ordinary and the poor people of Trinidad and Tobago. And today, my dear citizens, my dear brothers and sisters, people of this country, we as the alternative government of Trinidad and Tobago, we have been doing our homework under the leadership of Kamla Persad-Bissessar. We have been consulting with all stakeholders. We have been consulting with the trade union movement, the labor movement of Trinidad and Tobago, in terms of understanding what is the workers' agenda, arriving at a clear understanding of how the policies of this government has impacted upon the standard of living, the cost of living of the workers, the middle class, and so on. And we are saying that we call upon the government, because we are a party rooted in the labor movement, rooted in struggle, rooted on behalf of the demands of the working class, and so on. And we are saying to the government, what is your position on unionized terms and conditions in the Trinidad and Tobago Revenue Authority? What is the position of the government from a policy point of view as it relates to successorship and the recognized majority union at the Board of Inland Revenue and Customs and Excise, which is the PSA, whether they will be able to retain their collective bargaining position on behalf of the workers, whom will be transferred to the authority with the approval of the appropriate service commission on the terms and conditions which are no less favorable, which was enjoyed in the public service. We asked the minister to how much have been appointed on transfer by the Public Service Commission to a suitable public office in the Enforcement Division on the terms and conditions which are no less favorable. What will happen, or how many have chosen to remain in the public service, provided that an office consummate with the office held by him in the public service prior to the date of the TTRA coming into the act, or in coming or in keeping with conformity to Section 18 of the Trinidad and Tobago Revenue Authority. And this morning, I asked the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance, where is the Minister of Digital Transformation in this whole exercise as it relates to the implementation of the property tax, given that the government is collecting a tax that involves new valuation of properties, new assessment, and based on a new formula, the government should have put in place the appropriate options. The Minister of Digital Transformation should have ensured that property owners could have made payments by using the registered e-money providers, by online direct transfers, and numerous payment centers around the country. But then again, they do not care about the suffering of the people. And I don't know if the country can tell us who is the Minister of Digital Transformation. I really don't know. And what has he done and what he has been doing to ensure that government services called the Government Pay TT program, which he boasted about 3 years ago, has become operational to deal with the payment at government offices and so on. This is something that they were boasting upon, and since 2015, they cannot get right. And also, where is the Minister of Finance, given that the tax is unfair and it is burdensome? We demand that Colm Imbert tell the owners or property owners, when will the valuation tribunal, which is supposed to hear and determine appeals of property owners who have objected to their notices of assessment which have been served on them, when it will be appointed, how many appeals have been lodged, and when will these appeals be determined? And moving away from the issue of the property tax and the TTRA and the bungling and the fumbling and the chaos and the mayhem and the confusion and incompetence of the Prime Minister and his entire cabinet, I want to move to the very important issue of the leader of the opposition call for independent election observers or international election observers to be brought into Trinidad and Tobago with the impending general elections or the imminent general elections whenever it is called, because we know that the upcoming general elections will be the mother of all elections in the history of Trinidad and Tobago. And over the last 9 years, this government has undermined the Constitution. It has undermined the rule of law. They have emerged to be the most undemocratic, anti-people, anti-worker government in the history of Trinidad and Tobago. And you only have to recollect how they attacked the Integrity Commission, then the Prime Minister intercepted the merit list, which, as it relates to the appointment of the Commissioner of Police, it led to the collapse of the Police Service Commission. The service commissions have been under attack. The office of the Governor of the Central Bank was attacked by this cabinet. They waited until the substantive president was out of the country, and the acting president was instructed virtually to remove the governor of the central bank. He went to the courts, $14 million for wrongful dismissal. The commissioner of the Board of Inland Revenue, Rohini Ramkisoon, under attack from the Minister of Finance, the auditor of the Office of the Auditor General. Up till now, $3 billion have not been accounted for. All independent institutions have been politically interfered with over the last 9 years. And that is the concern of the leader of the opposition and the United National Congress. And we are very concerned that the Prime Minister was very flippant, were very dismissive, and he lied to the Parliament of the country when he told the country that the government did not, when he said at no time, and I quote, under the cloak of parliamentary privilege, at no time in the history or record of this country did the government of Trinidad and Tobago ever say no to anyone in relation that we could not facilitate the observers of our election because we did not have any money for them. It is fabulously untrue. Once again, as I said, the Prime Minister led the country and the Parliament using parliamentary privilege. But more importantly, we want to remind very quickly that we are concerned about the electoral process in Trinidad and Tobago. This continues to be an issue for Mrs. Prasad Bisesa as the leader of the opposition, because there have been a number of observer missions to between 2000 and 2015. And we only have to see in 2015, the EBC extended the Election and Boundaries Commission, the polls by 1 hour, resulted in the election petitions being filed. Then in 2021, the TTRA of House of Assembly elections, the elections crisis, the tied results, and the Prime Minister admitting that he instructed the EBC to create additional seats, which led to an elections and so on. And the Rowley government had to be taken to court to call the 2023 local government election. And the EBC, not the UNC, administrative error in the Lengua Indian Walk local government election, which resulted in a ballot cast for the UNC candidate being deemed invalid. This is another irregular action by the EBC, which our court recognized as such. And this is why we are stringent. And the leader of the opposition sent a 14-page letter to the Prime Minister. The last time he received a 7-page letter, he found it onerous and long to read and digest and distill. But today, we are saying, from the point of view of the UNC, we are demanding, we will hold steady, we will continue our campaign to demand that election observers be brought into Trinidad and Tobago. We will take this campaign regionally and internationally to CARICOM, the OAS, to the United Kingdom, to North America, to the Commonwealth, and so on, because we simply do not trust this government. And we believe, you know why they don't want international observers? They want to have the space to operate, to bribe. Their track record has been one of moving with money. There's an honest fella in the PNM who knows how much money fits in a Carib box, in a Carib case. And we are getting from credible sources that their machinery is already being oiled to put $500 more, $500 and more in red jerseys and target vulnerable sectors of our society in the marginal constituencies and so on as part of their elections campaign. And my colleague have already signaled to you here this morning, St. Augustine told you that we have reliable information, credible information, that the EBC has received the printed ballots for the imminent general elections. And this is why we are saying that everything is pointing to the elections being called. It will be conducted. And that is why we are saying we cannot trust Rowley. We cannot trust this government. And we reinforce and reiterate the leader of the opposition's call here this morning for international observers. And this brings me to the end of our press conference. And I will now invite my colleague, the MP for St. Augustine, MP Ameen, to join me at the podium as we remain at the disposal of the media to field questions. Thank you very much.
Question?
Hi, morning. Kimberly Fletcher, Guardian Media Limited. You made mention, MP Indarsingh, of property tax torture, as you referred to it. And if once put back in office, this is something that the opposition will repeal and treat with again. But there's also mention of the extension date for the payment of property tax, for it to be extended this coming week, possibly tomorrow. So can you share your thoughts on that on us? With us?
My thought, I've said it, it is a government of chaos, a government of long lines, property tax, torture, pain, suffering, mental anguish. There are persons who really cannot find the wherewithal. 44% of the people don't have a bank account in this country, and this is unfair. It is burdensome, and that is why whether the tax is extended or not in terms of the deadline date to cover for their share incompetence and so on, the UNC has made its position clear. We are opposed to the property tax. We are opposed to the TTRA. We have put it on record, and we will work out when we get into government. We will repeal, and we will go back to our formula somewhere along that of the land and building taxes. This has been the mantra of Mrs. Prasad Bisesa and the UNC from day one.
I know some persons in the public was of the belief that cash was the only option to make these payments, but you can also pay by a credit. I know you touched on a bit of the recommendations that the opposition had for possible other methods of payment. You want to touch on that again?
Well, I mean, this is a government that we can only recommend. They have failed in terms of miserably as it relates to implementation and delivery. They have said this is something that they had on their legislative agenda for 9 years, since 2015. In 2024, into their 10th year, you mean they couldn't get it right? Where's the Minister of Public Transformation, Digital Transformation? He boasting 3 years now of what iGov pay and so on, government for the people, a government by the people and so on. They do not care about the people. That is why the minister took the X and gleefully announced that we won. They have set up a war between the people and the government of Trinidad and Tobago. They are poles apart. They are totally disconnected. And this is why I'm saying, up till today, the people don't know who is the Minister of Digital Transformation. You expect, after sheer incompetence in the last 3 years, you expect them to get this right in 2 weeks? I do not expect much.
MP Indarsingh, Doris Polo, also from Guardian Media. You mentioned that the Prime Minister abused his parliamentary privilege, would have been on Friday. Could you please explain How so, and whether the opposition, intends to report him to the Privileges Committee?
Well, of course, these things are always under the purview and consideration of the party's parliamentary caucus and so on. We will have to get the appropriate Hansard, but we want to reiterate, and we have it based on the media release that was sent out by the leader, by the party on the, I'm trying to get the date, media release, the 20th of September 2024 from the office of the Leader of Opposition. That was last Friday. And of course, on the 16th of September 2024, the Leader of the Opposition wrote the Prime Minister request for the government of Trinidad and Tobago to invite independent, international, and regional election observers for the upcoming general elections. We were very clear, and we gave a timeline, we gave the facts and so on, which clearly says that notably in Parliament on Friday the 20th of September 2024, Prime Minister Rowley, under the cloak of parliamentary privilege, and I quote, "At no time in the history or record of this country did the government of Trinidad and Tobago ever say to anyone that we could not facilitate observers of our election because we did not have any money for them." It is fabulously untrue. Once again, the Prime Minister has misled the country and the Parliament using parliamentary privilege. Attached is a media release from the office of the Prime Minister dated the 26th of July 2024, noting that the Commonwealth and the CARICOM election observers had requested that the government assist with the cost of the 14-day quarantine period, and the government publicly responded, "It is deemed necessary that the host government not cover the election costs related to the quarantine of members of the election observer missions." Requests have been made by the Trinidad and Tobago to the potential benefactors within the Commonwealth community to cover these costs. To date, no definitive positive results have been obtained, and the timely arrival has expired if persons were to follow the established mandatory protocol. And we have attached the links where responses were too late. Rowley blames lack of finances for no election observers in TNT. Election observers can pay, and even Duke, their call, government should pay for election observers. So we have clearly spelled out the timeline. We have provided the evidence to support what we have concluded about the behavior, the flippant, the dismissive, and once again, arrogant behavior of the Prime Minister. This is about the democracy of Trinidad and Tobago. And today, I am calling upon all the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago to mobilize themselves in all of the polling divisions across the 41 constituencies of this country to become monitors on behalf of the people of Trinidad and Tobago, to have the conduct of the EBC and this government closely monitored as it relates to the imminent general election.
MP Indarsingh, is there a difference on the same point between the Prime Minister saying that he could not, the country could not afford to fund the quarantining, the 14-day quarantine period for these election observers, as opposed to saying he couldn't fund them coming at all, because that was within the COVID-19 period where they weren't able to come in and mingle with the population outside of going into quarantine? Is there a difference?
Ms. Polo, you filed that question to ask the Prime Minister, but I will tell you that this government borrowed billions of dollars during that COVID-19 period. And I'm sure that if they were serious, if they were concerned about the democracy, about transparency, accountability, and good governance, they would have certainly found the money. Just as you are hearing this morning, $44 million is being diverted from the Ministry of Local Government under programs which should be in the interest of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Flooding, you can't get potholes. This is the Trinidad and Tobago now has created a Guinness, can enter into the Guinness Book of Records for the country with the most potholes in the world across the 41 constituencies. You could put that in the bank or put that in your pipe and smoke it. A country with the most potholes in the world under Rowley and Rohan Sinanan. And you want to tell me that if they're finding the means to divert $44 million, they couldn't find the means to get monies for election observers if they were serious about the democracy and the importance of conducting elections in Trinidad and Tobago?
So you said that the UNC is prepared to go regionally and internationally. Will you be intending to write to these 16 or any of the 16 that the opposition leader outlined to sort of ask for them to come?
The leader of the opposition has made her position clear. She has sent an extensive letter. She has sent a media release, and the UNC will not back down in its call for election observers or monitors to enter Trinidad and Tobago. You know, nearby, even the very close associate, confidant, and ally of the Prime Minister, Maduro, had election observers in the recently concluded elections they conducted. You should probably consult Maduro because he has been consulting Maduro on a number of issues.
Mrs. Prasad Bisesa reached out to the Prime Minister. Will you be reaching out to the organizations themselves?
I've made that point very clear. The leader of the opposition did not send a 14-page letter to the Prime Minister for kicks or for joke. This is serious business, and we will follow through within Trinidad and Tobago, within the region, and from an international point of view. We belong to the global community. We have friends, we know how to network, we have the experience as a former Prime Minister and being ministers of government and so on.
Yeah, I have some questions from Alicia Boucher from TV6. So let me start. First for MP Ameen. Since the government has only now started rolling out the collection of property tax, do you not think it premature to make a pronouncement that the regional corporations are not getting the money from this?
Well, first of all, let me tell you, the government would have known that it did not collect any property tax from the beginning of the year. They came in the budget and made a projection when they knew that they were not ready to collect the taxes. In fact, even now, where you are having long lines, we are awaiting a decision by the Minister of Finance as to when the new deadline will be. May I remind you that they have been pushing this deadline for some time. It is very clear that they administratively are not ready to collect taxes. First of all, the promise was that the regional corporations would collect the taxes. There's a need for all these units to be set up within the regional corporation, the staff to be trained, the computerized systems to be put in place so that they can collect property tax. That is not ready. So they have resorted now to the district revenue offices collecting, and we are now seeing the backlash of that. And I do believe that the government knew they were not ready, but the government is under pressure to prove to the population that they can reach a certain amount of revenue in terms of revenue collection. They want that money is recorded on their books. They want to come to Parliament to say, this is the tremendous amount of revenue that we have collected as a government. So they have gone through with it and tried to scrape as much as they could. So on the record, they would have shown that they collected property tax. And I say, why put that allocation on the books in the regional corporations as if you have already collected it and you have already dedicated it? Each regional corporation in the last budget had a line item with, in most cases, $10 million in each of the 14 regional corporations. You are talking about $140 million being allocated on paper to the regional corporation. So when the Minister of Local Government said that the regional corporations will be collecting and managing their money from property tax, that was a lie. And today we are seeing the result, and it is very clear that the government continues to be inefficient and incompetent, but they are also grant charging. So they are hell-bent on implementing property tax. The government first promised property tax way back in 2015. In fact, before they became the government, they were talking 2009, making all the promises. And in fact, they lost government in 2010, partly because of property tax. So since 2009, you're talking about property tax. You lost an election. You came back in 2015. You are the government and you have been there for 9 years talking about property tax, promising property tax, and you are still not ready. And to me, this is their attempt to say that they did in fact successfully implement it. And I also want to mention that property tax is one of the reasons the Minister of Local Government was able to say that the regional corporations will get an increased funding. But in addition to not collecting that $140 million projected that was allocated to the regional corporation, we see where the government is taking back $44 million, which they will now give to their political friends in CPEP and RDC. We see that they are withholding money. They are not releasing monies that have been committed to do projects where contractors have been engaged in regional corporations. And we see where they are giving additional responsibilities, such as maintenance of schools. So all of this now ends up with a reduction in funding, whereas you came and you grant charge and you mama guide regional corporations to say you're going to have an increase in funding. But we are seeing at every step of the way, there are very foreseeable instances where this money will not be available. And the government is now so bold-faced that they're just taking back the money in a very bold-faced manner.
This is a second question from Alicia Boucher. She asks, the government did signal during its talks on property tax that it was struggling to fund the regional corporations, and the tax to be collected was a way of corporations becoming more self-sufficient. In light of this, what, in your view, would be a viable solution in relation to the government's funding and tax collection?
First of all, I really believe that the promise to have regional corporations collect property tax was just a promise. The government made no steps in putting the systems in place to collect property tax. You must have departments that are outfitted for that. They must have trained personnel and a system that will also facilitate the electronic payments, the receiving people in the regional corporations in terms of their accommodation, whether it is a separate building or a department within the regional corporation. You must have supervisors, you must have field agents, you must have a suitable place accommodation for that and systems. They did not put anything at all in place in the 9 years that they were there. So to come in the 8th year and say that we are ready to collect tax was a total lie. And they knew, I believe they knew this would happen, but they wanted to go through with the lie. So they are already caught lying and they want to continue in the lie, and so they are saying that, they will continue. And the second part of the question was?
About what would be a viable solution in lieu of property tax to fund the shortcoming in local government.
When the UNC was in government, there are several things that we did to strengthen local government. Strengthening local government is not only have to do with the funding you give them, but also the resources you give them, the human resource, providing them with all the resources to fully carry out their functions, having their chief officers, having their staffing. Even now, there's a significant shortage of engineers, corporate secretaries, attorneys, financial advisors, and so on that are required by law to be present in the regional corporations. When we were in government, in addition to the funding, it was also collaborating and networking with the existing ministries. So it is not just about throwing more money, but even so, the government, I think, has to stop setting up the regional corporations. They are setting up the regional corporations, and I warn you, Trinidad and Tobago, Faris Alwari, as Minister of Local Government, is going to come in the Parliament for the budget and attack our regional corporations, attack our chairmen, our mayors, our councillors, for every inefficiency at the corporation, that when really the blame falls at his feet. And they are doing this and setting up the regional corporations to throw the blame off themselves.
Okay, I have a third question from Ms. Boucher. She asked, how soon does the UNC plan to file the FOIA concerning the transfer of funds?
We will keep you updated on that. As a matter of fact, we may not even need to file it because information is coming forward and we will present some more information. What we do know is that the PNM has a history of using state enterprises to campaign, and they are getting more bold-faced with it. We saw it in Lengua Indian Walk when they used WASA to provide contracts and to lay pipelines to do massive employment, short-term employment, of course, but to Mamagai people. And 1 week after the election, those same lines that they put down there has no water. To date, we want to ask how many days have those pipelines received water for the people of Lengua Indian Walk. And that is a classic illustration of how the government uses government resources in those areas. They did it in Tobago for the elections, for the TTRA elections, and they failed. They used the Ministry of Community Development and Self-Help to give out millions of dollars in grants, millions of dollars. People had bricks and gravel lying by the roadway during the campaign. And what happened? The people of Tobago voted them out. So where we continue to monitor, but we also have information that the National Reforestation Program was used to pay election and campaign personnel from the PNM. And we will continue to monitor these things, but we are putting the population on the alert because you must not fall for their tricks and their mamagai.
Okay, I have a question from Alicia Boucher from TV6 to MP Indarsingh now. And her question is, are you optimistic that reaching out to other sovereign countries to have election observers for the 2025 general elections will yield favorable results?
We will fulfill and discharge our duties within the regional and international community. And we remain optimistic, taking into consideration that between 2000 and 2015, that there have been election observer team to Trinidad and Tobago. Well, thank you very much, members of the media and the viewing public. Continue to monitor the activities of the United National Congress as it relates to our Monday night meetings, our weekly press conferences, midweek press conferences, and the work that we continue to do on the ground in relation to our state of readiness for the imminent general elections. We once again take the opportunity to wish Trinidad and Tobago Happy Republic Day as we observe our 48th anniversary as an independent republic. Whilst there is not much to celebrate given the state of our affairs in Trinidad and Tobago, we continue to remain committed to the continued growth and development and building of our Twin Island Republic. I thank you.
Do you know that in 2016, 66 liters of diesel cost $100? Today, under the PNM, you get 20 liters of diesel for $100.
The diesel you paid $100 for under the UNC now costs $327 under the PNM,
which directly affects the cost of food, transport, and services. Guess who I'm voting for next time?
Everybody now, let's go!